Hello, Midnight Coders, and welcome. So, developers argue endlessly about APIs, REST versus GraphQL versus gRPC. Which one should you actually use? Just a couple of points here. REST is everywhere. GraphQL is gaining popularity, and gRPC powers high performance systems. But instead of just talking about them, we're gonna build them. So we are going to build a midnight blog where users can register, log in, and create a blog. Start making posts, receive comments, get some likes. We're going to start out with REST because it's still the most common API architecture used at this point. And what we're going to add is user registration, authentication, ability to create a blog, create a post, create a comment on a post, and like either or, as well as reading these posts. Our tech stack is going to include Java 25, Spring Boot 4, PostgreSQL, Spring Data JPA, and Timeleaf for a very simple UI. Our model layer, or our layer, uh, we are going to have a model layer, which is basically the entities. We're going to have a repository layer at the bottom, which is going to be our data access. It's going to be how we access the database, and the model is basically the information that we're putting into that database and requesting out of that database. We're going to have a service layer. This service layer is going to be our business logic. It's where all the fancy spancy mathematical logic is going to happen. We have our controller, which is going to act as our REST endpoint. And of course, we're going to be it's also going to be the view, which is going to be our simple UI. So REST is fundamentally about resources. What is a resource? A user is a resource. A post is a resource. Comment and likes are also resources. So make sure you've got that full cup of coffee. And let's dive on in. Now, before we go too far, I bet some of you were questioning, what is REST? Well, REST is representational state transfer. The core idea in a RESTful system is resources, which are data or objects, are exposed through URLs or endpoints, and clients interact with those resources using standard HTTP methods. Now, a client may be an internet browser, it may be a terminal, it may be a smartphone device or a Internet of Things device. A client is not a person. A client is a way that interacts with your API. And the way they do that is through standard HTTP methods. A GET request retrieves a resource. A POST request creates a resource. A PUT request replaces a resource. A patch up a patch request updates parts of a resource, and delete removes a resource. But now, what do these actual words mean when we talk about a representational state transfer? As big words. So, representational. The server sends a representation of the resource, not the actual resource itself. So common representations are JSON, which is the most common used when you think of sending something across the web. Most times it's done in JSON format. There's also XML, HTML, and protocol buffers. Now, state, each request contains all of the information needed for the server to process it. This means that REST is stateless. It doesn't require a connection to pass the information to. Everything is just given when I ask for it. Transfer, this is the clients and servers transferring the representation of the resource over HTTP, which typically would consist of a flow of a client makes a request, the server returns a representation, maybe the client would modify said representation, and then client may send an update of that to replace the existing record. Now, let's take a look and see what that looks like in code. This is where we get nerdy. So once again, make sure you got that full cup of coffee because we're going to dive on deep. Okay, so we're going to start out where we always do on our lovely IntelliJ. Thank you, JetBrains. Cheers to them. This is hands down the best IDE I've ever used. We're going to create a new project. This is going to be the Midnight blog. And this bad boy, we're going to rename the artifact because I don't like the way they do that. I also don't like the way they did this. We're going to say that's just blog. Or actually, yeah, we'll just say this is blog. No, we're going to go Midnight Coder. I'll make the blog one so we can stick the other data in. We are going to use Java 25. I want 25 jar properties. For the sake of this video, we're going to use Groovy. And we'll hit next. So in here, for the sake of speed and whatnot, we're going to use Lombok. We'll slip in DevTools for as well. We're also going to want some Spring Web so we actually can do stuff. We're going to want Timeleaf because that's what I like. We're going to use Spring Data JPA as our SQL with a Postgres driver. And that's it. We don't care about anything else. So now we'll create the project. There we go. Let it build itself. All right, let's explore the project. So we've got our Midnight Coder application. Boom, 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 boom. This here looks good. Everything looks happy. So let's start out by building our user, I suppose. So we're going to come in here and we're going to go, this is going to be inside of a user folder, and we're going to call this then, it's going to go inside of a model, if I can type right, model package, and it's going to be that of user.java. So if you didn't know that tip, um, give it a thumbs up if you just learned something. You can actually get away. Whoop, you can get away with creating a new file, just a Java class, but you can type in the, if you don't have the path, or even if you do have the path, you can type in the path, blah, 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 whatever dot whatever dot whatever dot whatever dot whatever dot whatever dot file name, and it'll create the path for you if it doesn't exist. Level up your your skills there as a dev. Now a user is, I'm also going to stick this in a table under the name of users, and we are going to have an ID, I want this to be generated, so I'm going to say generated value, which is going to have a strategy type, that of UUID, and this is going to be a private UUID ID. And now there's going to be a username, and then we're also going to have an email and a password, and that's about all we care about. We are going to come down here, and we are going to make a post construct. So this post construct is going to be something that's going to happen after the construction of the class, which I want to make sure that, if UUID is already existing, then we're just going to ignore this. However, if the ID doesn't exist, we're going to set it. I usually like that as a fallback, just in case something goes wrong. But that's it for our user. Next, we're actually going to need to make well, I suppose we should create the repository for this. So there's going to be an interface. And this is, I probably should have done this up here. This is a new Java class. This is also going to be user dot repository dot user repository. If I type that right, I hope. Cool. Now, this is going to extend a JPA, and we're just going to, there we go. Now, this is supposed to be an interface. There we go. Now, next we are going to need to create a service for this, which is just going to primarily handle getting a user, which we'll get into that once we get a little further in. So next we're going to need to create there is no web for this, although there is a controller. No, there's not. There's an auth controller that I'm going to make, so that's going to be under. Okay, so next we are going to model more of our data. So we're going to make a new class here. This one is going to be blog. There we go. So what this annotation does, if you didn't know, pre-update means that whenever we call a save function on the repository to save this, or to update it, it's going to then run this block of code. In our case, we just simply want to update the time that we've updated this, so that we don't have to remember to do that in the code when we do this. So that's kind of a bonus. Now pre-persist, this pre-persist here, which differs from this pre-construct that I did. Pre-construct gets done before this thing gets constructed, which I'm actually going to snag that as well, and I'm going to put that in here as well. However, pre-persist means before we save this. So before this gets persisted to the database, we're going to set the created at, and then we're going to also set the updated at to be the same thing, to be right now. And next after this, we are going to make a blog repository. So again, here we're going to do this. This is going to be an interface this time, and it's going to be blog.repository. If I can type. Okay, so here we go, blog repository. Once again, we're going to come down here. We'll just annotate this as repository for the sake of it, and we're going to do this. Whoop. this is going to extend JPA repository, and we will import both of those bad boys. All right, so next we need to do is make a post and comment. I will save y'all the hassle of watching me type out that code because it's basically redundant, and I will be back in just a moment. Quick little coffee break. Alrighty. Sorry about that brief break, everybody. But now, as you see on my left, and let me make this just a smidge. Why is it not going bigger? There we go. Okay, bigger. So these all now have their model and repositories. I would like to run through a few things though. So the user is a single entity. The blog has a user, or sorry, has an author, which is a user, and it also has some comments. So this has a one-to-one mapping. This one has a one-to-many mapping. What about a what the hell mapping? Okay, so think of this here um, as the left-hand side and the variable as the right-hand side. So one blog has one user. One blog has many, this should be posts. Just realizing this now. Blogs have posts, not comments. Posts have comments. So now here we go. We'll so one blog has many posts, and if we jump into a post, well, many posts can have one author, and technically this would be blog. As you can tell, I'm very sorry. A lot of this I wrote off the cuff. So this here, you'll see now many posts have one blog, meaning kind of the opposite um, going back. So now, this blog has many posts. A post, many posts have one blog. Hope that makes sense. You know what to do. Now, what else do posts have? A post, which I did not add in here, is supposed to have many comments. So we'll add that in now because a post, so one post to many comments. So again, that is one post has a relationship to many comments. Hope that makes sense. Comments, well, many comments can belong to one post, and one comment has one author. Now, whereas likes, a like can have one-to-one for the user, so somebody, and they're liking something. It's either a post that they like or a comment that they like. One or the other. Very simple structure. Now, let's talk about the authentication process, because this is where some things get fun. So in here, we are going to start out with a DTO package. So we need to make some data transfer objects because these are just some stuff that we're going to be modeling around. So in here, we're going to make a new Java class, which is going to be a record, and this one is going to be auth request. All right, and this is going to be a dead simple, it's going to consist of a string, which is going to be that of a username or email. That easy, just that. Next, we're going to need to make an auth response. So how do we respond to this? So the auth request is what's coming in. And that technically I need password. There we go. So this is what comes in from the user. And next we need to respond to that. So this is going to be an auth response. And that was supposed to be a record. Good job, Mike. So here, as again, we are going to make this. This one here is going to have a UUID because we're going to tie it with a user ID. And there we're also going to have a string of the username, a string of the email, and then finally a message that we're replying with. So this way we can say login successful, login failed, you incorrect username password, something like that. So we can have it. Why is this rename? So that we can have a response. Now, next we're going to need a registration setup. This is just the authorization. We also need some registration. So we're going to make another Java class, and this one's going to be a registration. Registration, did I spell that right? I have no idea if I spelled that right. Registration request. And this one is going to be that of username, email, and password. Yeah, that's what that one is. And then we're going to need to respond to that. So we'll make a we're going to make a registration response, which was also meant to be. I'm getting good at that. Sometimes English is hard. Typing is difficult sometimes. So once again, we're going to come in with a UUID, the user ID, and we're also going to respond with a username, email, and message like we did last time. There we go. All right. So that is our authorization and our registration requests. So next, we need to make some edits to our repository. So in here, we're going to need to prepare for a couple of things. So the first thing that we're going to need to prepare for is we want to be able to find the user by the username or the email address. And we want to get an optional for that. So I'm going to say optional, which is a user, and we want to find by username or email. Thank you, autocorrect or IntelliSense, whichever it was that did that. Next, we're going to need to look for a couple of booleans. We want to know if they exist by the username, thank you, or if they exist by the email. Look at that, you're on fire. All right, can you do the rest of this for me? Now, so the next thing we need to do is we need to go into, we need to make a new class. This one is going to be our security configuration. So we're going to stick this into config, and we're just going to call this, not security, password configuration, or config, password config. All right, so now this guy is going to have a public, we're going to say password encoder. Did I not take Spring Security in here? Okay, so I may not have taken Spring Security. Let's pop in here. And this is again why I love IntelliJ. We're not going to sweat the small stuff. We're going to click on this Add Starters and come back into here. Now we need to find, I did not take Spring Security, so we're going to add it. That simple. Trigger a refresh. The project was rebuilt. We're good to go. So this one is going to be password encoder, password encoder. Okay, so now we need to import a couple of things, and now we have ourselves a bcrypt password encoder. We'll make this a bean. In case you're not, in case you don't know, a bean in Spring Boot sense is a way for um, Spring to manage the life cycle of this particular object or thing, in our case, the password encoder, so that we can now do some fancy stuff like go create, which I'll show you here. We'll get rid of all this, come back in here, source, main, Java, user, and we're going to create a service. It's be a new file. This is going to be a service, and it's going to be the auth service. Now I'll show you what that bean lets us do. All right, so really? None of you told me I spelled that wrong, really? Okay, so we're good with that now. So this needs an at service annotation, so Spring knows it's a service and can manage it. And we also have Lombok on here, so I'm going to be taking in the constructor so that I don't need to worry about this. So we're going to have a private final. This is going to be a password encoder. And it's password encoder, which, why are you not picking up the bean? Oh, there we go. So I have to mark this as a configuration so that Spring can manage the life cycle of the class, and then we mark the bean so that it can manage our individual things. So now I can come in here and say password encoder, and everything is happy. Sorry about that. All right, so now we also need a private final. Did I really spell that wrong again? So we need a private final user repository, and we're just going to call that user repository. So we now need in here a public, this is going to be an auth response, and we are going to authenticate, and we're taking in an auth request, and we're just going to call this request. Now in here, we want to go into our user repository, find by, yep, I'm going to do that. I do want to happen to come down, and in case we don't find something, I want to throw a conniption fit. However, I'm just going to, for the sake of this, call this a runtime exception, user not found. Cool. Now we can store this variable in an object called user, which is ultimately a user. So now the next thing we want to do is, now we know we have an actual user. In the encoder matches, which is basically if the requested password matches the hashed password, then, or in this case, if it doesn't, then we're good. Then we're going to throw invalid username or password. Otherwise, we know everything is all right. So yeah. So next thing we're going to do here is just return basically this same thing. Except it was going to be login successful. Next thing that we need to do is the login system. Oh, sorry, no, this was the login that we just did. Oh my god. Yeah, no. Yeah, authenticate, yeah, that's what we just did, login, now everything's good. Yeah, okay. So the next thing we need to do, sorry, is handle the registration. My mistake. So, registration is gonna be something very similar. So I'm just going to minimize the noise. Minimize the noise. There we go. Okay. So next thing we need to make is the registration. So we're going to say public void register auth request. No, this is going to be a registration request. And this is not going to be void. This is going to be a registration response. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So in here we are once again, we're going to use the exist by. So we're going to say if, and we're going to go into the user repository dot exist by email or exist by username, doesn't really matter. We're going to say exist by email, request email. We're going to throw a runtime exception saying that the email already exists. Otherwise, we're going to do the same thing for username. And we're going to say that the user already exists. And otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to create a user, which is going to be that of a new user. And we're going to fill that user with some information. So the user dot set email is going to be that of the request.email. Request.name is going to be that of the name. And then the request.password, we're going to encode the password. Look at that. I didn't need that, all that. So after we create the user and run through all of this, we're then going to save the user. So here I want to actually store this as a cached user so that I can work with that in a minute. So the next thing we're going to do here is now we're going to return a new registration response, although I don't know why it's doing it like that, which is going to be I love IntelliSense. All right, so that's going to be our response. Very simple for our login and our registration. Okay, next we need to go make a controller. So we'll come into our user and we'll make a new, this one's going to be in the controller package, and it's going to be that of the auth controller. So this is now going to be a REST controller, since we're working with RESTful information here. And we're going to say that there is a request mapping of auth. No, it's going to be API/auth. And then we're going to also slap in a required args constructor. Thank you, Lombok. So that we can come in here and have a private final auth service. There we go. And now we're going to make a post mapping for the registration, which is going to be very simple. Okay, so we're going to say at post mapping, and this one is going to be that of /register. So this is going to return a response entity. So we're going to say public response entity, and the entity is going to be that of a registration response. And it's just going to simply be register. And it's going to take in a registration request, but that registration request is going to be as part of the request body. And yes and no. So we're going to say response entity status, and we're going to say that this is an HTTP of created. The body is that of the auth service dot register. There. And that is all we need for that. Very simple. Not getting too complex with this because we just want this to be a simple thing. So next we're going to make a public, same idea, response entity. This one is going to be that of a login response. No, it's not. It's an auth response. So authenticate, taking in a request. See, this knows exactly what we're doing. No, it doesn't know exactly what we're doing. Okay. Dot status. Okay. You know what? I suppose okay would have been fine there. I suppose okay would have been fine. Let's go with what it did. I suppose that's fine. Okay. So there. Very simple controller. Very simple thing. Now, the next thing we need to do is make a web view so that we can go through with this login and register. I'm going to give this a post mapping of login so that it makes sense. And yeah, so the very next thing we need to do is we need to make, there's going to be a, okay, so we're going to have to come up and make another package. This one is going to be web. And then in here, we're going to simply make a sitemap controller. Okay. So the purpose of this guy is to just render a HTML page. So the idea here is that we want this one to be a controller, not a REST controller. This is not returning a resource, it's returning a string or a controller. And what this one's going to actually return, we're going to do at get mapping, and this is just going to be straight to the root, which I should probably specify up here as this, and it's no, it's not sitemap, it's just localhost, right? Cool. Um, yeah, it's just going to be localhost. So this is now going to return string, boom, and this is, for all intents and purposes, going to be index. That's going to be, and notice the squiggle. The squiggle is important. This says that we cannot resolve MVC index. What that means is that if we go into here and templates, and if we were to, and I'll show this, let me drop this over here so we see that. Now I'm going to create a new file in here, which is going to be an HTML file, and I'm going to call it index.html. See what happened there? Squiggle turned into an underline. So if I was to middlemost click or control click or even just hover over it, it'll tell me where this is going. Source, main, resource, templates, index.html. So I can go directly to that. Pretty cool, eh? All right. So now I won't bore you with the making of the website pages for a login and registration. Uh, I will do that uh, via Hollywood magic. I'm just going to do a little movie magic here and pause the video while I create those. So just a quick note here. While I've been while I've been working on the HTML and the controller aspect, I decided to clean up the authenticate and the registration process and be a little more descriptive rather than throwing errors that the client will never see and making it harder on myself. So what I did was I came into the register, I got rid of the throws illegal argument, and instead of throwing illegal arguments, I'm now returning a registration response with a null user ID and a clear message, just so it's a little bit more descriptive, and I can relay that easier. That is through the um, registration and the login process, so that the controllers now, if the authenticated user is null or the user ID is null, then we're going to come back and say unauthorized, and here's the user, so that I can check on the receiving. Well, no, this is just going to return with an unauthorized here. Um, And down here, again, I've got ways to return either yes, the registration was completed, um, or no, there was a conflict, meaning that something was null. Um, and I should really do a double check for a registered user is null or this. Okay. And don't think too deep into why these are underlined. Um, that's a whole other video by itself. Now, Um, this will allow the login system to be able to properly handle this. And I just wanted to make that little quick little ad here in the middle while I was doing this. So yeah, I will be back in another minute. Alrighty, so with these templates out of the way, I've got a very simple home page, which is going to have a login and a register button for now. The login page is going to ask you for a username or email. This name does matter, as it does it does get mapped to the DTO that we have as our, what is this, login? Login as our auth request. Username or email, password. So because this is a username or email worded that way, we have to word the name of this as this. I did the others just for simplicity. But this is how we map these are the objects that get passed, the name. So into the registration, we have a username, an email, a password, and a confirm password. So I made this so that when users log in and they get authenticated, we can check to see if we find them, and if their password does not match, invalid credentials. Otherwise, login. Sorry, registration. When they go to register, we're going to see if the email exists. If it does, return that. If the user exists, return that. Password's too short, return that. If the requested password does not equal that of the confirmed password, passwords don't match. Otherwise, we can register, save, and reply. Um, so next thing that we need to do for all of this fun bit that we're doing is we need security. We need a security config. We need to define what a security chain is. So this is going to be our web security config. Now in here, again, I need to make this into a configuration. Otherwise, I'll goof like I did before. And we need now to get a public instance of a security chain filter. So security filter chain. There we go. We'll call this the filter chain, and this needs to take in an HTTP. What is it? HTTP security. Oh yeah, right there. Okay. And this is going to be, we're just going to say HTTP. So now, what this is going to return, um, we want HTTP dot, not session management, dot CS. We're doing this, and for the sake of it, we are going to just do an abstract um, abstract HTTP configurer disable because we don't really care. Next, we want to authorize HTTP requests. Here we go. So this is the fun magic we want here. So we're going to look at this, and we are going to auth um, dot request matchers. This one here, we are going to permit all to the home page, as well as the login. Well, yeah, login. The login and the register as well. We also want people to be able to go to API auth. Okay, API auth login and register. So this should allow everybody to go to these pages, and then anything else, any requests. Otherwise, we want them to be authenticated. So anything other than these, we want them to be authenticated. Now I am going to I am going to add in another one here. So I'm going to duplicate this, but this is mainly for resources. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say this is going to be an HTTP GET. And what I want to be able to do here is I want people to be able to get into certain things. Like, for example, I want people to be able to read the blogs. I don't have that directory yet, but that's what's going to be where we're going to go to see our blogs. And I want everybody to be able to make GET requests there to see it. I also want people to be able to get some resources. So for that, I'm going to paste in these resources here. I want people to be able to, I just copied this from my Midnight Coder spec, because I want people to be able to get anything to do with CSS, JS, or images, because those are technically static resources anyway. And now, anything else from there? I want, what else do I want? I need the form. Nope, don't do it there, Mike. Do it on this guy. Form login. We could just, tell Spring that we want the login page to be our thing. And the other fun thing we can do with this is now we can say default success. We want people to go to a certain page. And in my case, it's just going to be home. And maybe I want to say, whatever I want to say after that. But I can point people to go back to home or index, whatever I want to call it. So after they've logged in, we'll put them back here. That being said, what if they have a log out? Again, the strong idea here is the success one. Yes, but I also want to say default no logout. Yeah, logout URL. I don't know if I'm going to have a logout page or not, but the idea is the same. Dot permit all. Okay, and that's all we need for here, I believe. So we just want to simply return the HTTP request and build it. And that is our security chain. So now if we did an @bean, Spring can handle this. And if you'll also notice I did try to run that. I added a Docker Compose file, which just simply has our thing running on a local port. I had to use 9.2 because I have something else running on 3.2. So yeah. And in that I also have it set up here. So now if you're ever curious to see what's in the database and you use third-party tools, or maybe you use the H2 console, I think it's called. I don't know. I don't use that. I use IntelliJ. So they have a database view which has recently become available to the free to play users, I suppose. You'll notice I can either come in here, I can come in here and say data source, Postgres. I can fill out all this information, yada yada yada, username, password, blah, blah, blah. Or I can click this button, this little database icon. I can click this and it populates everything for me. Hit up a test, successful. hit the OK. Now we're connected to our database. That's simple. So I can expand this and see that we have a database here. I can expand this, see we have public, expand that, see we have tables, expand that, and there's our information. Our blogs, comments, likes, posts, and users. You can, of course, open this up and drill into it and see what these look like. This is a wonderful database tool, and it's all cooked right into IntelliJ. So, thumbs up to IntelliJ. JetBrains did a great job. Um, all right, so let's fire this up. Something went wrong. I assume that's a security chain filter. Yes. So we'll run this again. Everything seems fine and dandy. We'll open up a browser. We'll go to localhost 8080. And there we see hello world. La 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 la. Welcome to the Midnight Blog. Log in or register. Click on register. We go username. I'm going to say Glabe. Password. 123. Confirm password. 1234. Create account. Look at that. There's an error. Can I log in? Log in with an error. 123. Log in with an error. 1234. Log in with an error. Okay, so I broke something. All right. So a couple of things. One, I needed this API auth because I forgot that I wasn't pointing it to the right spot. Two, I realized that I didn't spell this correctly. Noob mistake. All right. So if we stop this, run this, open up the internet, and go to localhost 8080, we get hit with a login. I just wanted to go to 8080, hello world. We got a little registration here. Register. I'm going to say this, say 123, password 123, create account, hit with an error. So here we have an error, and we'll handle this better later, but here we have an error saying the password must be at least 6 characters. So let's go back and try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom. Now we get another error saying, okay, the passwords don't match. Right, we need to try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Create account. Boom. You'll see here that now I have a user ID and registration was successful. This should have, in theory, taken me back um, to the login page where I could have put in my information 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, strongest password ever, hit the login, and we get an error. I don't know why, but we'll take a look at that. Yeah, okay. So again, I'm a little bit of an idiot here. So we'll try this again. Rerun this. Come here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're still getting an error. Why am I still getting an error? I discovered what is most likely my problem. So this is a REST controller, not a controller. I do apologize for that. But now I need to return a string. So this is obviously an error, which I'm actually going to just return this dot concat authenticated user dot message because so I want this to not be null and I want this to be null, then we do this. Okay. Otherwise, we are going to be redirecting the person to the home page for the login. That's simple. Now, same idea. We are going to come up here, and this is going to return a redirect, and it's going to take them back to register, but it's going to have an error. And error equals that of dot concat the registered user dot message right, because this needs to be a string as well, because we're again string as well. And down here we are going to do basically the same thing. Success is true. And except for going into register, we're going into login, and we're going to say reg registration equals success. Okay, there we go. So that's what this is going to be. Now we need to handle those errors so that they make sense to a user who gets them. So if we're going to the register, which has this error, we're going to come in here, and above all of this, we're actually going to make a look at this. It knows what I want. So if the parameter is error, then we're going to say error whatever the message is. If the parameter is registration exists, which we know we know that it would if we were in here. And no, technically, sorry, that is in the login page, not the. Yeah, we're in the login page, are we not? No, we're in the registration page. So if the registration has error, then we're going to tell them what the error is. Now, if the login has an error, same idea, but now this is also going to have a log out message, and it's going to have a registration parameter. So these are the messages that will pop up above the thing that will tell people if they've successfully registered. You've been registered. You've been logged out. Error. Da, 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 all that sort of information. So it'll be a little more helpful to them. So as we go through here, our next step after this is going to be creating a blog and handling that. However, this is going to be it for this video, and in the next video, we'll handle creating the blogs, the posts, and doing a little more work with that. For now, this is us getting the login system up and going, and people can now register. And again, if I come in here, run this, and we pop back into my browser, these messages should no longer be a thing. So if we pop back to hello world, and if I go to login and famous 123456, log in, hello world, I'm logged in. Now if I wanted to register, let's say I want to register not Glabe to Glabe Studios, and this password is going to be 12345667. 12345667. Now if I click on create account, it should take me here, tells me that I've been registered, and lets me go ahead and log in. So there we go. that has been getting this up and going. If you learned something, go ahead and hit that like. I do apologize for all the little mistakes that went along the way, but we eventually got there. It's all that matters, and we're here. So now in the next video, we're going to create the controllers so that we can create a blog or claim a blog. We'll turn our home page to so that if we're logged in, we'll do a little more security stuff. So that if we are logged in, we will not show the register or login. Instead, we'll show log out just to signify that we're logged in. We will create the controllers for the blog so that we can create a blog, claim a blog, sorry. We will make it so that we can create posts, create comments, create likes, show you how all that works together. We'll talk a little bit more about TimeLeaf and how it makes life easy. But for now, this is the basic app up and going. And if you learned something, make sure to hit that like. If you did learn something, I'm actually very curious to what you learned. So not only if you've made it this far, post a comment in the video of a penguin. That's just if you're on Windows period, look for a penguin, reply with a penguin. If you happen to have learned something, then drop a comment on what it is that you learned. I'm curious towards what people take away from these videos. So on that, keep your curiosity open, your skills sharp, and that coffee cup full. I'll catch you in the next one, guys.